Video games are a multi-billion-dollar business, and like any business, in order for a game to be a commercial success, it has to be good. Good or part of a popular franchise. Recognition and marketing play just as important of a role as the game being good in the first place. A game could be considered a commercial flop, yet still be considered by fans a must-have title, an amazing game. We call these games hidden gems, because just like real hidden gems, they're small, tiny, shiny things that are amazing amongst a pile of crap. Though, unlike real gems, hidden gems typically aren't expensive. They're usually pretty dang cheap, because the company that made it is trying to make at least some of its money back. So they're like, please, we'll give it to you for $5, please take it. A lot of things can cause a game to become a hidden gem, and in this video I'm going to show you 5 of those things, as well as bring up some of my favorite hidden gems. And you can find a list of all of these hidden gems I'm mentioning, as well as all of my other favorite hidden gems, on my Games Grabber page. Games Grabber is kind of like a social media network for gamers. You can use it to make collections and keep track of which games you want and which ones you have. You should definitely check it out by clicking that link in the description and giving me a follow on there, and check out that collection that I mentioned. Now on with the show. Reason number 1, development hell. This term is used to describe terrible conditions for developing a game. Development hell often leads to terrible games. Not just commercially terrible, but just bad games in general. Duke Nukem Forever was in development hell for way over a decade. And sure enough, despite all the hype, it became a mediocre game at best. But some games go through hell and back, but still wind up being pretty good. For this example, I'm going to be talking about the hidden gem known as Brutal Legend. You can pick it up pretty cheap on Steam, or when it's on sale. I got it for like $1. What's going on here? And generally on consoles it's under $5. So this game was created by Double Fine, and was originally going to be published by Vivendi Games through Sierra Entertainment, who promptly were bought out by Activision, and Activision did not want to publish Brutal Legend, despite it so far turning out pretty well. And it was pretty far along in its development. Too far to turn back now. Activision still said no. So Double Fine went over to EA and got the game published by them. And Activision sued EA over it. It was a huge mess. Also, while in control of EA told them that they would only publish their game if they were in charge of the marketing, and they marketed it lying a bit. See, a large chunk of Brutal Legend has RTS elements, real-time strategy, though it is primarily a hack and slash. But EA said that RTS games don't really do that well on consoles, so let's not tell anyone that it's part RTS. Of course, this upset people and led to poor sales. Despite many celebrity cameos and a very imaginative, very creative game world, and the main character being voiced by Jack Black, I really enjoyed this game. But, you know, lying marketers and all that. It's not perfect by any means, but it's better than most. But this still wasn't enough to make up for the fact that it went through developmental hell. And so, it did not do so well commercially, but I do highly recommend this game if you're into metal music, especially classic metal. Reason number 2, lack of marketing. If no one knows about your game, no one's going to play it. Obviously. This is a major problem that produces tons of hidden gems. Earthbound, Metal Arms, Otogi 2, Psychonauts. Yeah, the list goes on and on. It's either that the publishers and producers didn't think the game would sell that well anyway, so they saved their marketing money to market other games more, or the entire marketing division quit 2 weeks before the game was released. Yeah, that happened. The Last Express is a game hailed by many as one of the greatest point-and-click adventure games of the 90s, but the marketing team completely just quit. So the game had 0 marketing, so it made like no money. Marketing is essential to any game's commercial success. It's not as important now as it used to be, thanks to the internet and all that. Word of mouth is now like smoke signals from a wildfire, a Californian wildfire. But even just a little bit of marketing is still required for that. Reason number 3, console exclusivity on the wrong console. There's a whole debate to be had about console exclusives existing in the first place, but this isn't the video for that. But having your game being an exclusive on the wrong console is just bad news bears for everyone. And not the movie, I mean actual bears all around you. That kind of bad news. First off, The obvious. If you're publishing your game exclusively on a dying or unpopular console, of course it's going to flop commercially. That's why there are so many hidden gems on the Dreamcast and Sega Saturn. Basically every good game on that still failed commercially. But sometimes, even being on a popular console can cause your game to flop if it's not the right console. For instance, take the Wii. It is the most popular console of its generation and is still the 5th most popular console in the world. So, making an exclusive for it doesn't seem like that bad of an idea, but it's all contextual. Nintendo games and other family-friendly games will do amazing on the Wii. That's the whole point of the Wii. It's the family-friendly option. So when a game like Mad World comes out, it flopped. Oh man, it flopped. Developed by Platinum Games, this game is very artistic and is hailed by many critics as a hilariously over-the-top hack-and-slash game, but it's also over-the-top in violence. So being on the family-friendly console is definitely one of the leading factors to its flunk. But if you are a fan of good hack-and-slash games, it's definitely one to check out. Reason number 4, releasing at the wrong time on the wrong console. Okami? Anyone? Those of you who've watched plenty of my other videos know how big of a fan of Okami I am. And I highly, highly recommend it to anyone that likes Zelda. It's Zelda, but better. But being such an amazing game didn't count for much, as it was still a huge commercial flop. It is now known as the least successful Game of the Year, because it won tons of Game of the Year awards, but only sold 600,000 copies. It was released on the PlayStation 2 and the Wii, and for whatever reason the marketing team decided to put most of their marketing focus on the PlayStation version, since it was the core game, and since at the time, way more people had a PlayStation 2 than a Wii. But this was a terrible time, because it was 2006, and the PlayStation 3 was coming out in a few months. Kids and teens everywhere were saving their money for the next console, and many of them would be selling their old PS2 and games. So why would they bother picking up another game for it now? Everyone wants the new and exciting stuff. So, a game on PS2? That's gonna be old in like a month. So of course, it did terribly commercially. Though there is an HD re-release on PSN on the PlayStation 3 now that I highly, highly recommend getting, if not the Wii version. And reason number 5, oversaturated markets. This is hands down the leading factor in good games becoming hidden gems. They release at a terrible time filled with AAA games. Grim Fandango is hailed by many as the greatest point-and-click adventure game, but it released in the holiday season of 1998, where it was going against the likes of Half-Life, Metal Gear Solid, and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Not good competition to have for a new IP. Needless to say, everyone bought those for their Christmas gifts. Beyond Good and Evil went up against Ratchet and Clank, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, and Call of Duty. So boy did it flop. Developers everywhere know that this is what causes good games to become commercial failures. And so they now avoid publishing their games at the same time as all the major titles. This is why XCOM 2, a game I'm really excited for, got delayed. It was originally slated for a November 2015 release, but since it announced that date, other major games have announced that date as well. And I mean major. Tomb Raider, Star Wars Battlefront, Call of Duty, Halo, Fallout, Pokemon. Jeez! XCOM made a good call to not release at the same time as all of those. The first XCOM since it rebooted did well, but not amazing, so delaying the sequel to avoid this high competition time was a good call. I mean, hidden gems for us gamers are really good. They're usually pretty cheap, and they give us unique and wonderful experiences. But for the developer, they want to keep their jobs. Hey, so I mentioned a lot of games in this video, but those aren't necessarily the only hidden gems I'm a huge fan of. There's also tons of others, and I've created a very extensive list of all my favorite hidden gems on my Games Grabber page. As I mentioned, you should definitely go check that out in the description and give me a follow on there. And there's links to every one in case you're interested in getting it yourself. So until next time, stay awesome, and never stop using that noggin. Good in the first place. A game could be considered a commercial flop, yet still be considered by fans a must-have title, an amazing game. We call these games hidden gems, because just like real hidden gems, they're small, tiny, shiny things that are amazing amongst a pile of crap. Though, unlike real gems, hidden gems I'm mentioning, as well as all of my other favorite hidden gems on my Games Grabber page. Games Grabber is kinda like a social media network for gamers. You can use it to make collections and keep track of which games you want and which ones you have. You should definitely check it out by clicking that link in the description and giving me a follow on there, and check out that collection that I mentioned. Now on with the show. Video games are a multi-billion-dollar business, and like any business, in order for a game to be a commercial success, it has to be good. Good, or part of a popular franchise. Recognition and marketing play just as important of a role as the game being good. Typically aren't expensive. They're usually pretty dang cheap, because the company that made it is trying to make at least some of its money back. So they're like, please, we'll give it to you for $5, please take it. A lot of things can cause a game to become a hidden gem, and in this video I'm going to show you 5 of those things, as well as bring up some of my favorite hidden gems. And you can find a list of all of these. Reason number 1, development hell. This term is used to describe terrible conditions for developing a game. Development hell often leads to terrible games. Not just commercially terrible, but just bad games in general. Duke Nukem Forever was in development hell for